So are you ready to play Raging Form in this metagame? Especially with the ban list being effective on May 1st, other decks have gotten hit. This actually puts Raging Form in a really good spot, not only as a going first type of deck, but it can also keep up with the other decks that kind of outscaled it later on. The deck wants to focus on multi-Vanguard attacks using Raging Wrap, but also you can fall back to Raging Form V series as well. And then later on, you can have access to Chainraker to copy your heart. And you have actual options with your grade 3s moving forward with that too. We also have phenomenal J-Guards in generic strides such as like Morfessa, Phantom Blaster Diablo, and also the Griever Dragon 2 as a perfect guard. Let's get right into it. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. On the grade 3s, we are playing 2 original Raging Form. This is helpful for getting the crest for Raging Form, so that way you can go into Raging Wrap and have a much more better turn 3 type of play too. What's also cool, if you fall back into it and you need to rewrite a Raging Form from your hand, you could actually write the V series. This is also good as a follow-up turn later after that. So you can do Raging Form things a second time in a single game. This will also accumulate force markers each time you write this version too. And then when you have damage that is 4 or more, you can CB and call cards like Mana to be able to build your field for more attack extension. This is also super helpful if you combine it with Trumpeter, get in a grade 0, and then boom, you have 3 rearguards that you can retire once more to have another Vanguard attack follow up as well. To help with the consistency of the deck, we are playing 3 copies of Slayhack's Dragon. Some people have done 4 and then reduced the ratios with the other Raging Forms. I just don't want to solely rely on this card because it does use a CB. If your opponent restricts you to 1 CB, then you cannot use cards like Dark Blast in addition to Slayhacks fixing your grade 3 ride, so that could be problematic. But if you don't have copies and you do have extra CB, this card really helps with the consistency overall. We're playing 2 copies of Raging Fall Reverse. So this is helpful in niche game sets where maybe if you have the first stride turn, you can go into this and go into Chainraker, go Force 2 and deal with some problematic decks that can retire your board and you can't necessarily deal it effectively on that same turn. So this could be another option. This is great as a follow-up later on if you've done Raging Form types of plays. So that way your force markers have accumulated and you're already Generation Break 3 and your Chainraker can inherit the skill to be restanders essentially while the guard restrictions enable. So this card is phenomenal still. Other grade 3s that you may want to consider is the Phantom Blaster Abyss Legion. That's actually really good if you want to recycle some key pieces while having access to Legion Stride essentially. I actually covered this in an old video how that looks like too, so if you're curious on how that works, you can check that out. The one thing that I don't like about it is that it does use 2 CB, and it also forces you to play the Mate, which is the Revenger version of Blaster Dark essentially too, so you had to make some room with that. Another alternative that I've messed with this past year as well is Raziel. You can actually have 1 copy of Raziel as a finisher, because once you write it, you can't write anything else, but thanks to Chainraker, you can inherit its skills and have a stride version of Raziel. You'll get the additional drive check if you use the divine skill as well. So you're shuffling all your crits back, you'll get the additional drive check, so you'll go quad check essentially since you're on a stride already with the Generation Break 3 skill of demanding the 3 or more cards per attack. You could also make it where if you call a Mana and a booster from your drop zone, Mana works in general, so Mana can actually get another grade 1 from your deck and make sure you still continuously fulfill the 3 grade 1s or less on your field too. Well, decked in as well on top of that, because again, you shove a bunch of crits back into deck too. So that's another option. In terms of grade 3 orders, I am playing Bracing Angel Ladder. This is actually really good against any like disruptive plays that's so kind of hurt this deck too, mid-battle too. So if you're not going first or you're already in the mid game, it just helps with that. Worst case scenario, this card is really like an Upstart Goblin getting into your piece. This adds to your soul. I notice when you're unwrapped, your soul is constant. So you could run out of soul depending if you're using cards like Tartu or Reno to Soul Blast, and then also the original cost for Raging Wrap too. So just having a card that instantly soul charges too can give you some wiggle room there. And what's interesting is that it gives your Vanguard additional 5k for that turn. Even though you rewrite or restride, that applies to each Vanguard attack. Sometimes where if you put the force marker on the Vanguard, you're typically 38 with Raging Wrapped, but with the additional 5k, now you're 43. So even if your opponent's grade 2 that's a 10k or 9k gets 3 triggers, they'll be 39 and 40k and your 43 still hits. So it's kind of annoying for them too. So if you're literally pinging them from 0 to 5 or 6 damage potentially, more than likely they're going to hit some triggers along that process too. So this kind of helps that too. Other orders you may want to consider is like Calibarn. This helps you with countercharging, adding to the soul again. You could just flat out draw 2 if you feel like you having the extra hand would help that too. There's also the other card Fire Regalis too. So as you discard that card for the cost of stride, you can still use that in the drop zone, and that can also help board build. So that way you're a little bit better set up. But I just feel like if you're going for that type of play, you'd rather get a guarantee +1 from like Caliburn, or maybe just dig deeper into your deck with Bracing Angel Ladder 2. Sometimes what you have in your hand can dictate what stride you go into. And the last thing you want to do is kind of risk it on a top 5 that may not work out to your benefit too. Keep that in mind. And then we have 3 grade 3 heals. So we are playing one of the countercharger in the grade 0 slots. Again, this can help surviving, but it's not as necessary. If you have no damage going into your grade 3 turn and you're going first, you can call this, give yourself a damage that way too. That can come up with this deck. Other than that, it is an Abyss Dragon that also works with the original cost of Rage and Wrap too, to discard. Don't forget about that. We are playing 4 copies of Dark Blast. This is necessary to get another Vanguard attack on top of 1 Raging Form resolving. You need a 2nd Raging Form or Raging Wrap to resolve. Dark Blast is what it's really there for. You can also use this with generic strides such as like Morfessa, your Nightcrow, Restandard, and other cards to pay like main phase costs, and then being able to get another Rearguard from deck to Rearguard Circle so that you can use it for attacks, boosters, or even more additional retired costs during the battle phase too as well. Then, as mentioned, Mana is phenomenal. She works just in general when you place. It's free. And then the card that, if it's still there, it'll just be bottom deck. So this can be a good grade 2 ride. Worst case scenario, you get a Reno and try to get it unhit. And then Reno will just go to the bottom of the deck, which you'll fetch probably more than likely next turn anyway. It's a really good card overall, and it works in any turn. In addition, we are playing 2 Tartu. So I actually used to play Demon World Castle. And I think it really just depends on the metagame that you're expecting to. So if you're not getting a lot of damage denial, you don't have to worry about using like Demon World Castle, be Vangebees, to be able to get like free triple Vanguard turns still. You could also extend to a 4th Vanguard attack. I've shown that combo in a previous video too, if you want to look at that. But the reason I went back to Tartu was because I just wanted something that I can get another body easily. And it's a 10k body as well. And it's a Revenger too. So it can be really hard situations where like you don't have enough Revengers to retire, because all your Vanguards that are Revenger literally need to retire Revengers. That doesn't really help if you're playing like a generic card too. And then also if you have like Mar, for example, that needs to counterblast a Revenger, not any card, a Revenger. So like little things like that. So that's why I went back to this. What's really cool, she's flexible, so you can call the Rearguard to any Rearguard circle. So you can literally call this behind your Vanguard on Chain Ranker, Raging Fall reverse turns, and be able to lock your grade 2s and leave your grade 1s, and you have like a beefed up front row while having GP3 still active. So you can do things like that too. Interestingly, with the slot that I had open, so I actually went to the Mage of Fame Blades. So really what this card is, it's at 1 copy. So if you see it early enough, this helps increase the chances of riding your grade 1, which is typically your Rakia. Your grade 2 can be a Dark Blast or a Mana or even a Turtle, for example. So this helps with consistency of riding up, especially if you're still trying to dig for a Raging Form. So that still helps. And if you see this late game, this is really good against turns with like Morfessa, or even like your other strides that retire during the battle phase too. So you may want additional Rearguards that way. And this can just attack extend, especially if you have a Force Marker that can actually help something hit. But typically this card doesn't shine as much. You use your typical Raging Form plays, your Raging Wrap plays. So see this as supplemental, as a consistency boost overall. That's really what it is. With the grade 1s for Rakia, so Rakia, you want to write this first, so that way when you get to your Raging Form turn, you're able to call a free body. You could actually call another copy of Rakia and be able to Soul Blast 2 and then revive a grade 2 card. So you can revive like your Dark Blast that you rode with. You could even revive a Mana too, and then fix that column because it's rusted. So you have a now standing column. Or you can call over the Mana too if you really want to. So you could do neat plays like that too. So this card overall, you want to see this and write it, and then also use its Rearguard scroll when needed too. This is another reason why Bracing Angel Ladder also helps with the Soul, because this is Soul Blast too. 4 copies of Reno. Reno is really good because you have that unhit pressure, but like when you hit and you check the top 3, that's just going to add cards that are combo pieces. Your Raging Forms, your Dark Blasts, your Manas, your other grade 1, or even your grade 0 heal. So you can countercharge G-Guard more easily. We also play the grade 1 PG, so that way you can grab it potentially from that too. This card overall is just fantastic. This works on Vanguard Circle and Rearguard Circle too. So if you even stack the Vanguard column, essentially you have double on hit. So you could do things like that. It's really nice. And then when you retire it, Soul Blast, your opponent chooses one of the Rearguards and retires it. So if you have multiple, your opponent can essentially wipe out their own field because of multiple copies of this card too. For the 1-ups with the grade 1s, we're playing 1 copy of Mar. This is the guarantee search of the copy of the Raging Form. So that's why I play Mar. I actually don't play Ify, and personally, I don't like Ify. Other players have more success with Ify. They do the rest in the top 5 search, and they hit the Raging Form like 9 times out of 10 for them. I've never hit a Raging Form. It's really bad, and so it's like, oh, you can give 2k to something, but at that point, I'd rather pay the guaranteed CB to get the guaranteed copy of Raging Form. So that's why I play Mark. But if you're a player that plays Ivy and it's working out for you, then great. Take advantage of it. We're playing the 1 copy of Trumpeter. Trumpeter is good for attack extension. Also, like if your play is disrupted and you ride the Raging Fall V, you can rebuild your field. So that way you do another Raging Form style. So that helps you kind of deal with some type of disruptive play that way too. There's also board builds too. So in case you really need another rigger to call something else, that can help. You can call your grade 0 Revengers, such as your triggers, your crits, your heals. So just only need it when you really need it at that point too. Because the last thing you want to do is like take out a trigger out of your deck too, unless you really need it. We're playing 1 copy of the Sentinel Revenger. Again, this can be searched from the top 3 with Renal. This can be recycled with Deep Graver Dragon too, so that you can potentially get it back later on too. So overall, it's a great card. You have the Sanctitude. So again, Sanctitude is good in this meta, gets around guard restrictions, just super helpful. Onto the grade 0s, we're playing full bout. So in my build, I can play any starter, but if you do play like the Legion, for example, and you're returning cards, if you end up returning like a Revenger starter, for example, that could be searched by Trumpeter too. Very, very niche scenario, but you can do that too if you like Revengers. I just like the doggo. Gotta respect the doggo. Onto the crits, we're playing 4 Stride Crit. You want to keep your Raging Forms in your hand so you can rewrite them. So you rather use Stride Crits to Stride. And then we're playing 3 Kafar. This is super helpful, not only being a crits, but defensively be able to draw a card. This helps surviving, but also potential combo pieces with consistency. So that's why we appreciate this card. In terms of Sentinel, we are playing 30k Sentinels, though we want to be aggressive. Again, we only have Sanctitude in the PG, but we also have access to the G-Guard that acts like a PG. So it's actually a good balance of Sentinel types. And then for more names, we have 2 copies of the Revenger Crit. Sometimes you literally have to call a trigger to retire to be able to do your turn. That comes up. And an additional Revenger, it's the heal, as I mentioned already. This will have your countercharging. You realize that there's no way for Revengers to countercharge unless you have certain cards, and this is like one of the best ways we have, unfortunately. So that's another reason why I don't play the Legion, because 2 CB is really hard to pay already. So if you're already moderating your counterblast for like Dark Blast, your Vanguard too, being able to at least countercharge once, or even using Caliburn if you play Caliburn too, so that can help with that CB management too. You really don't soul charge as often, but you could in some cases. Remember, it's one or the other too, so it really just depends on your scenario. In terms of OT, I do play the blue one, so this actually is another crit. So again, having 3 Vanguard attacks is very scary when you have a lot of crit. And that's really the premise of this deck. You can also get a card from your drop zone, which could be another copy of Raging Form. There's like the harder cards moment. Sometimes you may need a copy of Raging, and this can get you, especially if you know that you have an OT left in deck still. You can make those judgment plays too, but you can also just get defensive cards or combo pieces for the next turn. Just a great card overall. You can play the purple OT, so that's another way to like heal damage and also get a piece from the damage zone and add it to your hand, and now you can call something else onto the field. That might be actually not bad, because if you're retiring already part of your field and you're like mid battle phase, you can call something else as an additional attack, give that 100 million, and then give like 10k to the other card that's still left, maybe on a force marker. So you could do certain plays like that. Onto the strides, we were playing the harmonics because you need it for the ticket shield, also unlocking stuff. We are playing 4 copies of Raging Wrap, so this, you never know if you go into it too. If you feel like you don't need the 4th copy, you can just get rid of it too. Or you can keep it and not play a copy of the Drag Ruler. I just have Drag Ruler because when you do the Raging Wrap skill to Stride, you need to flip another Revenger too. So that's really what this guy is, flip fodder essentially. 2 copies of Chain Ranker. Again, copy the hard, do shenanigans, GB3 active, making it hard for your opponent to guard. Solid card. The 1 copy of Dark Knight Crow Crush. This card is a generic restander to a degree. You got to make sure that your opponent can only retire 2 or less to get the skill to be able to restand. So that can be hard for certain decks, especially Excel decks that scale wide. So this can be... So it's just like 1 copy, just knowing when you are able to generically restand on top of what you already do. Sometimes you're stuck on Raging Form and you can't do Raging Form things, so you're better off striding this. But if you have access to Raging Fall Reverse, you might go into Chain Ranker and do it that way too. So there's different options. Just depends on your scenario. As mentioned with Morfessa, we are playing 1 copy still. Great. It's 2 or more, and also like everything gets plus crit and 15k into the front row. Your triggers will count as grade 1s too, so it makes that Ritual 10 much more active, more consistently as a closeout. Good against even Mega Colony too. If you're behind a Gridora and you can't call stuff, this can be really hard for them to deal with as well. I used to play a second one for those reasons. Sometimes the first one isn't enough to seal the deals, and then you go into the second one. And again, that's just really hard to deal with. But because Mega Colony got hit with 1 Gridora, Gizeh decks are the only ones that really didn't get touched on the ban list too. So I actually revisited Phantom Blaster Diablo, so this helps making your opponent not able to guard, and you can just seal the deal if there are 4 damage or more. remember if they're on Gize, they burn their G zone, so they have no G guard. They can't use ticket shields like Sanctitude and stuff like that because Gize has the text where only the effects of guardians can be affected to them. And if you can't guard or G guard into the guardian circle to become a guardian, they literally cannot guard. So this is really helpful. Your Vanguard circle is going to have 1 or 2 force markers too, and then this gives itself plus 10k. You're going to hit over them no matter what too. 3 copies of the Griever Dragon. So this card is just really good. So you can recycle a bunch of grade 1s and get shield 5k for each of them, up to 5. And if you do the 5, you can CB1 and Perfect Guard on top of that too. So just a really good card overall, regardless if you're Ritual 3 or not. And then we have the Plot Maker Dragon. So if you're Ritual 3 and you feel like you still want to keep your drop zone as is, you can just use this card and get some shield value at that point. And that's Raging Form in a nutshell. So I hope this is super insightful. In this metagame, I have a feeling that this deck will show some representation, especially if you're a Revenger fan and want to have fun with this deck. This deck is just very fun overall just to play. Like when you go off, you go off. And sometimes you win so quickly or you lose really quickly. So if you like to have extra time in your rounds during your day-to-day too, this could be another deck that you want to look at too. If you want to see more combos with this deck, I made this deck profile last year too that actually goes over the plays too, so you can see it step by step. And also feel free to check out these other videos too for more deck profiles too. Till next time, amigos. Bye!